Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and we are hunting Panleons, of course. And today I'm going to talk about something that affects us all, and that is inflation. I'm actually going to link it to the effects of things in Entropia Universe. I think this is very important. Entropia Universe is the platform we all play on, and believe it or not, real-world inflation does affect things on the platform. So we're going to go through the inflationary period that we're in and how that affects the Entropia platform as a whole. But before we get started, if you're new to the Manor, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. Also, this is brought to you by my patrons. They are my only sponsor. If you like the work that I do, please consider becoming a patron. You get exclusive content every single month, and you're going to get some behind-the-scenes stuff as I've gone into doing VR videos. I am a good chunk of the way through Boneworks. I'm going to be releasing edited, produced videos of that footage, but the raw footage will be made available to my patrons, so please consider becoming a member at patreon.com/JulianMcBain. Okay. Inflation and the Project Entropia dollar. Post-COVID inflation has hit. It's hitting worldwide between supply chain and disruptions, all of the money that was printed over the last 2 years. I mean, 2020 to 2021 saw $7 trillion US printed. Not printed in order to account for the COVID-19 crisis. And there was good wisdom in doing so. There was also some bad wisdom in doing so. A lot of us saw the problems it was going to create, but it was one of those cases where you didn't have a good solution. You had to pick the least bad. And there's a good argument that printing that money was the least bad. There's also a good argument that it wasn't the least bad. But what that's going to do is it is currently driving the value of the US dollar down. December saw a record level of inflation, 6% annualized, and the trend is only getting worse. So for those of you who are in the United States or trade in US dollars on a regular basis or use the Project Entropia dollar, which is pegged to the US dollar, you're going to see those assets that are monetized in US dollars or a pegged currency continue to go up in price over time. Inflation makes life more costly. It's essentially a tax. It's not the same as a tax, but it essentially works like a tax. Your dollar value goes down, your earnings don't go as far, you're able to buy less goods. This is true both in and off the platform. And so, one, this does make a really good argument that MindArt consider separating the Project Entropia dollar from the US dollar. It helps to isolate it from inflation of the US dollar. They would have to blockchain it. There would be a lot of difficulties doing that. They'd have to pretty much mint it like a Dogecoin or a Shiba Inu token, because you would not be able to have it have an absolute limit the way that they've designed their structure. On the other hand, they could, and that would basically turn it into a standard of some sort. Now, I'm not sure Swedish banking law and how all that works and how they make their reserves work. MindArt has very carefully managed their assets. So even in this inflationary bubble, I have the feeling they're going to be fine. But it stands to reason that if you trade in the Project Entropia dollar worldwide, understand that because it's pegged to the US dollar 10 to 1, 10 PED to 1 USD, you need to be aware that these things could create issues inflationary wise. Now that could be good or bad for you depending on where you live. As an example, the US dollar inflating against the euro, if the euro goes up in value compared to the dollar, those of you living in the eurozone are going to be able to buy more PED for every euro you earn. On the other hand, if the opposite occurs because your central bank happened to inflate your money or print more money than the US did, your inflation is going to be higher. Turkey's a great example of this. Inflation in Turkey right now is 14% year over year. And the PED is going to get more expensive for you. On the other hand, it does mean that the PED might be a safe haven. Now, I'm going to stipulate this. I am not a financial advisor. I am not giving you financial advice. I do have roughly 10 years. It'll be 10 years in June in the finance industry. You can't do that much time in the finance industry without learning economics. You can't. And if you do, I don't know how you're doing it. You must be not degrading tellers. They do a very important function. That's where I started. But if you haven't figured out how finance works, by the time in economics works, by the time you've hit 10 years in the financial industry, you're not doing your job. Plain and simple. So, okay. If you're in a country that has higher inflation than the US dollar, Entropia Universe could be a form of safe haven for you. Now, I'm going to stipulate a few things. One, EU is not an investment vehicle. Okay? I believe they are a legally chartered bank. So there is that. I don't know how Swedish banking law works. I've said that many times. I'm going to reiterate it here. I don't know how Swedish banking law works. Look it up for yourself, do your homework, and do your due diligence before you decide to treat EU anything other than a video gaming platform. And I've said multiple times how I don't believe that EU is a game, it's a platform. I stick by that because there are a lot of things that you can do in EU that don't necessitate to be called gameplay. But at its core, hunting, crafting, and mining. Basic MMO gameplay. There is a game on the platform, and it is the primary purpose of the platform. However, the platform can be used for other things. There. Okay, so with the PED pegged to the US dollar 10 to 1, it's going to inflate with the US dollar. This is going to affect the in-platform economy. This is something to watch for, because if you're smart, if you know how to do it, you can take advantage of it. How can you take advantage of it? Usually, when a currency value goes down, goods purchased with that currency go up in price, which means you could buy in-platform durable goods such as spacecraft, land areas, deeds and shares, things that are non-fungible. They are easy to they're easy to trade. They're in high demand, so people want them, and they're going to be wanted even on the other side of the inflationary bubble. You could pick up 100 Calypso land deeds now, wait for the inflationary bubble to slide by, and maybe they go up 10% in value, sell them all off, plus you get all of the dividends you get from the land area income, and you've made out like a bandit. And there are people who do that. And people do that with the stock market too. This is something that you can do to kind of hedge against this inflationary period. That being said, don't go in expecting that to happen. There's a good chance the opposite happens, because the market in Entropia is not dependent on the larger market of the world. It is an isolated economy. It's its own world. It has its own market factors and its own market forces that drive it. On the other hand, when compared to the real world, when you don't know what other currencies are going to do, the dollar still has a lot going for it. It is the primary purchasing currency for petroleum. As long as petroleum is only traded in US dollars, it's going to remain a strong currency. That being said, that does not mean it's immune to governments printing money with abandon, which is exactly what the US government did in 2020 and 2021. So, just be cognizant of this as you're making your purchasing decisions within the platform and deciding how you're going to utilize or take advantage of this inflationary bubble if you have the capability to do so, or hedge against it if you have to move into austerity and close things up. Now, this is going to be particularly harmful to those who live off of the platform. What does that mean? There are a number of players, a small percentage, who make their primary income off of Entropia Universe. The people who own big industries is a great example. They make their income off of Entropia Universe. This is their job. There are a lot of creators that make a large portion of their income off of Entropia Universe, or at least if it's not a primary job, it's certainly a secondary one, right? So that's going to hurt them too, because they get paid out. Now, the income they make off of ad revenue is not necessarily going to be denominated in dollars. That will not be the issue. It's the money that they get in the platform they use to finance the videos they make, like myself. that is going to be negatively impacted by this inflationary bubble. So just so you all are aware, and no, I'm not begging for cash, I'm just letting you know that if you see creators slow down for a while, that's likely why. Because the dollars they're getting off their ad revenue, the PED that they're getting inside the platform may not be stretching as far. They may not be able to put out as much content while their finances get balanced out and the economy itself readjusts to this new inflationary period. This happened back in 2008 too. I know a lot of millennials will remember this because for some reason we got blamed for it, but when the dollar inflates, shit gets more expensive. Gas is a great example. And for those of you in Britain, you call it petrol, of course. But if you look at the petroleum prices, they've gone back through the roof. We haven't seen prices like this since 2009, 2010. It's terrible. So, okay, I've actually covered everything I wanted to cover on this video, but I am going to go through a few things to help you hedge against this inflationary bubble, because I saw inflation coming. I've been talking about it for months. Even I did not expect it to go above 6%. Like, I was thinking 4 to 5 on the outside. And I figured 5 would be catastrophic, and we're seeing 6, and we could be seeing 7 to 8% year over year within the next 3 to 6 months. So it's time to really start looking at what you're doing and finding ways to hedge against it, because that's all you can do. Part the first, if you have outstanding debt, now is the time to refinance before the Fed. If you're U.S., this is going to strictly be directed toward American viewers. If you're in Europe, if you're in other countries, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt and consult your local banking professionals or finance professionals, because the way things work in your country will be at least somewhat different than the way they work in the US. And your central bank planning is going to be different than the way the Fed works. So, that being said, they tend to trend together. So, while I say take this with a grain of salt, consult your local banker and your personal banker or your financial advisor and or their equivalent and find out what their recommendations are. Okay. If you're in the US, now's the time to refinance any high interest debt before the Fed raises interest rates. And they're due to the going wisdom that on the media says that they're planning on raising it as much as 0.75% over time in this year. They'll do it a quarter at a time as not to create too many disruptions. But that's a huge amount of money for those of you who have lots of debt. I was actually going through this with my parents. We were talking about possibly having them refinance their house to get the lowest possible rate. And they were like, well, it's only 0.5%. And then I showed them how 0.5% was as much as $5,000 a year. So that's on a house. I hope you don't have, more than $100,000 in high interest credit card debt. But that being said, any credit card debt you have, now's the time to refinance it to an installment loan if you have the capability to do so. That allows you to short the dollar, because having debt shorts the dollar. You'll be paying it back with less valuable dollars than what you borrowed, and you're paying a lower interest rate, so they're not making up that gap with high interest. And if you have the ability to do it on like a home equity, consult your banker about the possibility of doing it that way too. That gives you the highest dollar amount for the lowest rate. This is one of the reasons that is a product I often suggested for this purpose. But your personal circumstances are going to be different based on what your personal finances are. And if you're a renter, that doesn't apply to you. So consult your financial professional, find out what your options are. Now is the time. Do not hesitate or you'll be regretting it later. 2, if you can, get some of your savings out of the dollar. What do I mean by that? Again, consult a financial professional, but things that have always performed well in an inflationary bubble are precious metals. Go to your local coin dealer. You can order off of one of the various websites, although they always have minimums, whereas you can usually go to a coin dealer and buy single coins or bars. Silver, gold, platinum, palladium. Silver is the easiest to get into. The spot value is relatively low. I've seen it fluctuate between $12 and $20 most of my life. I'm going to actually look it up live here on what the spot price of an ounce of silver is. Oh, for crying out loud. Can I just get the bleeding spot price, please? Here it is. So you're looking at $23 ish. It's like $23.06 as of market close yesterday. So that's the ask price. So that's actually up, and that just shows you that inflation is happening. Gold, of course, has a much higher barrier for entry, but basically all prices revolve around gold. Gold does not go up and down in price. Everything else is priced compared to gold. That has always been kind of the generalized wisdom, but you can't really work like that. So they say, well, gold's going up and down in price. Gold is literally the gold standard for everything. And honestly, I think that that all currencies should be on a gold standard, but they're not. They're fiat now, which has been nothing but a disaster, but that's a whole nother episode. But go to your local coin dealer, buy 1 silver coin a paycheck, or once a month. Even a little bit. When the crash of 2008 happened, I actually did just that. I'd go after I'd get paid. There happened to be a coin dealer not too far from where I worked. I'd walk down there from my bank. It was right next, it was actually next door to the bank. I'd walk in. I'd buy a single silver coin. Within a year, I ended up having to move, and it was a rather costly move. I sold all the silver, and I sold it back for a much higher price than what I bought it for. There was some 10th ounce gold coins in there too, because you could actually afford them at the time. I made a profit off of it because I used it to hedge against inflation, and that paid for the move and for oil for the house for a while. So these are all things you can do. Again, consult your financial advisor or banking professional to find out what is the best option for you. Crypto is another option. Crypto is very volatile right now. Look into it. Make an educated decision. Again, none of these are recommendations. These are things that you should talk to someone about that is a professional in the industry after going through your personal finances with them. That's what I'm talking. That's the whole conversation revolves around that. But I felt it was important to go through inflation with you. The money you have is becoming less and less valuable every single day. Do what you can. Pay attention to where the money's going. And, yeah. Hopefully we all make it through this. Okay. I think long term, we'll find a way. We did after 2008. We'll do it again. I know that there's a lot of pessimism in the market right now. Economists in particular are particularly pessimistic. That's kind of their job. As the when I put my economist hat on, I get extremely pessimistic because that would be my job. But on the same token, I am an eternal optimist. We figured it out after 2008. Things got kind of tough for a while. Things ended up leveling out. Are they great? No. Will we recover? Yes, somehow. So do what you can for yourself and your family. Continue to keep on keeping on, as they say. And we'll see you in the next one, I suppose. That's all I've got. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate the support, and we'll see you in the next one.